Okay, so what we're trying to accomplish here is an index of conditions and how they relate to the gut, and some protocol suggestions, and some case study testimonial where we can add them in to make it more relevant. So we covered last week allergies, asthma, ADHD, and then how different birthing techniques affect those children that are on the spectrum. And we saw that the manifestations, the way they present, of course, is different, and there's some different gut approaches that would be helpful. There are some different product recommendations that are helpful, some time expectations from our experience, depending, of course, how severe the condition is presenting, and then the feedback of some outcomes on how successful we've been able to be in our practices at reducing, improving dramatically, inducing or improving, reducing or improving. And then I just put some codes here so that if we ever want to go back and say who has the most experience on what condition, then we've got some perhaps way to track that down. This week I added some conditions just so we can get some feedback when there's been specific experience on these. It's like belching, coated tongue, such as thrust, constipation, Clostridium difficile, cravings, diabetes, diarrhea, fatigue, headaches, hormone imbalance, indigestion, insomnia, weight gain. Most people are not concerned about weight loss, but of course it is of concern if it's a severe weight loss, such as in thyroid conditions and cancer. Okay, so starting from the top, if we want to talk about belching, most of this is a upper digestive issue. Generally, there are some other conditions. There's a line between hiccuping and actually belching. I have seen severe hiccuping that turns into turns into an emergency. We'll put it that way. So some of those individuals that cannot stop hiccuping need to be taken very seriously. But as far as the belching, usually, that's going to be either trapped air or it's a chronic indigestion issue that's going on. So does anyone have any feedback on a particular belching case? Otherwise, we'll just go with kind of the typical, if we use an upper digestive aid, something to improve motility, something to improve pH, and then keeping in mind it's probably a gut issue in the end, which is going to affect the entire gastrointestinal tract.
Okay, so when you say belching, do you mean like excessive versus just the normal, you eat, you swallow some air accidentally, and then you burp?
Yes, excessive.
You're talking about excessive.
Yes. And, some people, until somebody actually sits down and talks to them about belching, I mean, some of them are actually throwing up. Some are, it's not really from their gut or from their stomach. It's like a mucus that's trapped in their esophagus, maybe related to hiatal hernia, maybe to Barrett's syndrome, where you've got that constriction going on in the esophagus. So I don't know if anyone else has seen this.
So
I have not.
This is Chris. This may not apply, but I noticed, well, I don't relate to the air or the mucus thing really, but well, I don't know, maybe air, but I noticed something for myself, and so I had to retest my zinc. But one of the deals when you don't have enough stomach acid, it can be related to your zinc levels. And then like too much B12, like if you have too much B12 when you're tested, you know, in your blood or whatever, then that means you don't have enough stomach acid either. Well, so for the longest, because I had a copper IUD, it would leach all the zinc and offset all the zinc in my body. And so I had every kind of infection and whatever. But I also had low stomach acid because that's one of the side effects basically of not having enough zinc. And I also had elevated B12. And anytime you'd test my blood, I always had 1200 greater. And that's without taking a B12 supplement at all. So anyway, the thing I noticed recently, because I've been really good about taking my zinc, because I'm also taking quercetin and the other prophylactic stuff, is that my zinc values, because I don't have the copper IUD and anything else, and I eat plenty of nuts and foods that have zinc in it, that my values are actually very good for zinc. And so I do the zinc tally test. I mentioned that before, but what I started noticing is that when I was taking this kind of crappy, well, in my opinion, it's the crappy form of zinc. I don't know if it's picolinate or which form. It's the one you get at the grocery store, because I ran out of my zinc methionine, which is where it's zinc bound to the, however you say that word, methionine molecule. It's also called OptiZinc. It's much better tolerated. It's always in the capsule form. Some come with copper, 3 milligrams, some don't. They're usually 30 milligrams of zinc, 3 milligrams copper. Anyway, what I noticed is when I ran out of that and started taking that other crappy form, and I was just taking half because I don't tolerate it that great, which would be 25 milligrams with food, of course. When I was just taking that, I started getting acid reflux, and I've never been one to have acid reflux, and it would be specifically after I would eat certain things or whichever. And so I was like, I don't remember how I made the connection, but I think it's because I forgot to take it for a couple of days, and the reflux business stopped, and the incessant burping after I would eat or whenever had stopped also. And so I did a zinc tally test on myself, and I was like, oh God, this tastes awful. So I was like, yep. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. I think it was that this may be a more common thing to see these days because people are being more diligent about taking zinc, but they're often taking the cheap, crappy form from the grocery store like I was. Mm-hmm. And so it may be a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's important to include, anything to improve our pH balance, which of course means not to be taking proton pump inhibitors, but to find more natural ways to improve upper digestion. The Mega Guard form has the ginger that will help with motility, and the artichoke for bile, and the bile works like an antimicrobial, and it's the microbes many times that will change the pH and affect the whole gastrointestinal tract. So once and it's kind of a cycle, the bile improves the organism diversity, which improves the pH, which improves the bile, so it's part of that circle. So herbs also are very helpful.
Multifactorial.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you know what? I forgot to. Glad you mentioned the the one you just mentioned in the green. What did you just? Because I took two of those. Yeah, sorry, I just knew it was in the green bottle. Anyway, I was taking when all that reflux business started and the incessant burping and such, I did when I discontinued or decreased my zinc until I could get the proper form in, I started taking 2 of those before I would eat, especially dinner, because I'm
Super.
more tired and I don't know. Yeah. And so it did help for sure, which I was
Super.
kind of surprised, to be honest, because I thought I got enough prebiotics and probiotics. I thought I got enough of that, but whatever, it's all good.
Yeah. Okay, bloating. And of course, this is extreme. And I have seen this with individuals that have candida. I've seen it with individuals that start taking the megaspore or need the spore probiotics. And it's, in that case, it's like the sudden shift overwhelms the gut, and the release of the lipopolysaccharide just shuts everything down. And I have seen thin women bloat to where they look pregnant. I mean, late stage pregnancy. So this is extreme. And I don't know if anyone else has dealt with this or seen this. So I will say, look pregnant. And that can go for men as well.
I have.
Okay.
I have. The trouble is it usually comes around cycle time. So I was wondering if there was anything that could. It's multiple things are going on. Progesterone, lack of progesterone, slowing down estrogen dominance, which is funny because I eat all organic and I don't eat any soy and I, whatever. But anyway, that's gotten better since I returned to the gym, though, I will say, the estrogen dominance problem. But yeah, so is there anything that 1,000 for getting?
A couple of recommendations on that. I'm going to add the gym, because I think many times we forget exercise. Our bodies are made to exercise, and when we don't, we get physical symptoms. Exercise. So the product,
Motility, yeah, lack of motility. That's exactly.
yeah. So product wise, that Mega Guard again, because it improves stomach and upper intestinal motility, and helps with constipation, which can also cause bloating. But also the Mega IgG to reduce the LPS when it's, because the body is going to try to protect itself, and when you've got release of massive amounts of LPS, there's going to be an influx of fluid to try to dilute. The body, what's the old saying? The solution to pollution is dilution. And so you'll see that the body tries to do that on its own to protect internal organs, internal tissues, and we want to try to help the body too by drinking lots of water, taking the right herbs and supplements to help detox. Any other suggestions?
Back to the exercise conversation, isn't it that when we are moving, it actually helps move the intestines itself, and so it just jiggles them, and then the muscles then contract, and it keeps the motility of the intestines moving?
Absolutely. I mean, our bodies are meant to move, and we're facilitating lymphatic drainage. And that's the way the body helps detoxify itself and to nourish cells and tissues. So it's all good.
Yeah, well, lymphatic piece with the exercise is pretty important. I was just thinking, it's like, it seems to me that with IgG 2000, with the lowering of LPS, it seems like, you know, you could, I mean, we can sit around and take pills all day, but at the end of the day, if we're just sitting in our house on the couch, you know, eating our one Krispy Kreme donut from taking our vaccine selfie, then it's not gonna, I'm sorry.
And by the way,
it just doesn't
laughing,
seem like it's going to do a whole lot of good.
laughing is exercise too.
Laughing is good, yes.
Yes, it massages the liver, and that's a good detox.
Well, and I was thinking when Dr. Kev was talking about the yoga, I don't know the certain positions or whatever, but I know the side bends and the side twists and all that. You know, if that's all you can muster, then that's better than nothing. For me personally, that doesn't do it. I have to be at least like walking or dancing or something to that effect to get everything going. But then I also have to do the cardiovascular piece, which is pretty big for me. Cardiovascular disease runs in the family, but I think that's one of the benefits of IgG is the cardiovascular. Whenever you get there, I guess you're at C, so you'll get to that.
Yeah, and we can add in if we miss any, you know. Spreadsheets expand.
Yes.
Okay, so the next on the list is coated tongue. Of course, this is most likely related to thrush or candida or yeast. Don't know if anyone has actually seen this in someone.
Yeah.
Highly recommend always look at someone's tongue. There's a whole science based on looking at the tongue. It will tell you a lot.
Yep, acupuncture really gets into that. My acupuncturist is always asking me that. So I have had geotongue. I don't know if it's, I could show y'all my video and you'll stick my mouth on the camera if y'all want. But anyway, I have both, or have had both geotongue, which is well, y'all can look it up, I guess. I don't really have it too much now. But I've always had a swollen tongue for the last several years due to my thyroid nodules from all the injections I got in the military. Anyway, because it's not hereditary. But with that, when I eat gluten, I notice a distinct difference in my tongue coating. So I actually was thinking, now I don't really eat gluten hardly ever now. The only exposure I get to it is the organic oatmeal that's processed on gluten and milk containing, you know, plants or whatever. But my tongue will get coated if I eat gluten, and that's a thing.
Does
anyone
anyone
know if Dr. Tom's wheat belt, or the wheat one, I don't know if that would help or not.
The wheat rescue product? It should.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll put that. What I'm looking at is, does anyone know? I wanted to bring the title on the columns, you know, to be stationary. Does anyone know if that is protect range or where that is? I thought it was just clicking on the row if you want it to stay intact. I forget some of these. Okay, well, if
I
somebody,
knew it at one point with one of the older versions, but I don't remember it now.
yeah, that's my problem too. If they would just stop changing things. Okay, well, if someone thinks of it, okay, so I just have to keep going up and down to remember what these columns say. So what we're
Go to
considering,
your view. Can you hover over the view button?
yeah, view says
I mean,
freeze.
on the
Okay,
top.
so highlight it first and then view
Maybe freeze.
one
I
row.
don't know.
Okay, let me see if it worked. Thank you very much, Chris.
Hey. Woohoo.
Okay, so
That was just an experiment.
the
What is that TGR? You had it on the top.
Yeah, total gut restoration. So
Is that the oh okay, sorry, I'll mute.
yeah, I'll put a key somewhere on here because I'm just abbreviating the products. So Wheat Rescue, the other one specifically for Candida is the Mega Mycobalance. Unfortunately, that one's going to be on back order probably a while because I don't think it's just the soft gel leakage that's the problem. I think the FDA might be raising a red flag on the undecanoic acid, which is really, really sad because it's so effective. I have to be, personally, I have to be really careful with it because I know I have a lot of Candida. And if I just take, 2 days of that, just, two soft gels the first day and 3 soft gels the next, I'm an emotional wreck. So that's one of the side effects of Candida. I don't have, thrush or anything. I just have bloat from Candida. So that's the other. I've had an individual.
How do you have that
Sorry,
if you eat as healthy as you do?
Stress, I think, is a huge.
I guess I was assuming that Megaspore and Restore Flora. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's just been the last.
I was under the assumption that a combination of Megaspore, Restore, can get rid of it. I mean, a lot slower, but
Yeah, and recently I talked to a practitioner who was using Restore Flora, and she was getting the same emotional crashes. So yes, the spores can competitively exclude the yeast. And it really depends on how old you are, how much it's, worked its way down into your tissues. If you've had, long-term, stressful life, this organism is with you for life, probably. So it's just a matter of keeping it at bay.
I do remember Karan talking about that everybody needs some amount of Candida albicans in their system. It's just a matter of how much and when it gets out of balance.
Exactly.
So I forget why he gave a valid reason, as to why you always want some of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like I'm gonna have to go run around and get rid of this hawk away from my chickens. I'll be right back.
Okay. Okay. And really this whole discussion, and usually you can get Candida under control in about 3 months. Using one or a combination of those. Unfortunately, I've got too much personal experience on these symptoms. I hate to admit that, but maybe that's why, I was a practitioner, and I hear that from other practitioners. They had to fix themselves, and they just cost so much money to fix themselves, they had to go into practice to recoup it. Okay, so all right, so that's localized on the mouth, of course. This is pretty much the same as we put for cravings. Most of the time, okay, so the consideration, of course, we're looking at yeast. Most of the time, it is yeast. What? Feast? not feast, that is causing these cravings. This, Candida is a sugar-loving organism, and that's one of the reasons when you start fighting it, you'll hear a lot of complaints about horrific cravings that will start up. And this can go into the whole cycle of addictions. Many times, alcoholics, that's a high sugar substance. And when they're trying to quit, they'll get these horrific cravings that will drive them into probably smoking. And then they try to quit smoking, and then the horrific cravings will drive them into eating. And then, it's a really vicious cycle. And it could be, Candida is involved in every one of those. Any feedback on the craving aspect? Anyone have to deal with that one yet?
I know I personally have issues with that, and any suggestions would be welcome.
Yeah, I would say, look at the yeast aspect and know that it's a biological warfare, and this organism has a life cycle. It can go into biofilms, it can hibernate, it goes into, a spore form, and it takes a long time. It's almost a lifelong battle with this, but after a while you start identifying, oh, this craving is not the fact, that, whatever XYZ, I need to consider this is yeast. And instead of self-medicating with ice cream or chocolate, maybe I should, find a different source of medicating, something healthier. And there are complete, self-help groups, counselors, meetup groups that deal with yeast. William, his Hedges, Yeast Connection, William Crook, I think when he published that in the late 80s, it really woke people up to how invasive Candida is in our lives. So, yeah, getting the gut straightened out, eating healthier, and not self-medicating with sugar is probably the best thing you can do.
So, Tracy, will the biome test pick this up?
Yes, Candida is one of the pathogens that is on the pathogen list. Now, it could be,
Excuse me.
though,
So,
remember this organism has a cycle and it can be in hibernation. So just because if it doesn't show up does not mean you don't have it. It just wasn't active at the time you took the sample. So you have to keep that in mind too. Sometimes you just have to go with a symptom survey and know that you've got all of the indicators for Candida. And there's a whole list. If you Google it on the internet, there's probably 30 symptoms that help diagnose yeast.
okay. And does microbiome have like a recommended, I don't want to call it a protocol, but basically recommendations of the products to use and how to use them?
Yeah, always starting with the total gut restoration. That's foundational. And, then I would add the restore flora because you're dealing with an organism that is overgrown, out of balance. So you need to up the numbers of the typical recommendation. And then, look for your triggers. Chris had mentioned gluten is a trigger for her. And there's stress is a trigger for me. So there's other related triggers that you have to deal with. So, I have to, for stress, I have to look at adrenal. For the wheat, of course, there's the wheat rescue product. So, there is kind of a customization that you have to work up a protocol for yourself. But that's where I would start, is get the gut balanced and see. Generally, the candida will start raising its ugly head when you start pushing it out or making it uncomfortable, and you have to find out how it's going to manifest, and it'll usually go to whatever your weak link is. If it's your detox, it may it go to the skin. I've seen hives, rashes, boils show up on people's skin when they're trying to clean up their gut. And then so yeah, the emotional
Wow.
aspect is something for women I always remind them of, because it can really spiral you if you're not prepared.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go back up here to constipation. I've actually did a little PowerPoint on constipation. I wonder if I could find it real quick here. Darn, thought it would be easy here. But the point is, there are a lot of conditions, situations that will cause constipation. And what happens very frequently is when someone starts a protocol and they tell you, yeah, they've had chronic constipation, and you've got a gut protocol that they start, all of a sudden they stop all the things that they figured out that help them with constipation, and then they start your protocol, and the first thing they do is get horribly constipated. You have to remember that the gastrointestinal tract, the microbiome, the colon, does not like any fast changes. All of that is viewed as stress, and its initial reaction to stress is to shut down. So you have to kind of sneak up on the colon and make gradual changes. And so if they have figured out that their magic solution for constipation is prune juice, exercising 20 minutes, and getting to sleep on time, well, then you have to remind them, oh, while you're titrating up on the megaspore, keep doing your prune juice, your exercise, and going to sleep on time. Then what they should start observing is that they can use less prune juice, that they feel better, that they're getting then they can start backing off on some of those, but not exercising and not getting good sleep. So sometimes it's really reminding people that they are their worst enemy, and to keep doing the good stuff. A lot of people are very dependent on fiber, and if they don't have their 3 scoops of Metamucil every meal, then they're constipated. You don't want to be dependent on anything. That's why you need a lot of backups. Some people are dependent on magnesium. They have to do their milk of magnesia or their calm magnesium powder every day, or they're in trouble. And they're usually, they will tell you what their program has been. And we know that when their gut is healthier, they don't have to be dependent on this, because it does happen. People will travel and they forgot their poop pills. And all of a sudden their vacation that they had planned for, for 6 months is ruined because, they're having to give themselves an enema every day. Or, just I'm trying not to be gross. I'm just trying to say how much constipation can really make you unhappy, mess up your life. And so anyway, the idea is find out what the program is, keep them on it, and then as you're weaning them up on the new program, you should be weaning them down on the other so that they can see that they're empowered with the freedom that they don't have to depend on that regimen so much, to function, to just have a normal BM every day. And some people don't know what a normal BM even is. Um, you know, you have to remind them you're supposed to have a BM every day. Men typically will have 2 to 3, and that's normal for them. And it should, you know, be of a good formation, a good consistency, and a good color. And there are charts out there that go into great detail on what that should be. And there's what we used in our practice to get people over poop fear. We had a funny video that we would play. If you Google Scrubs poo song, there is a musical that it's not, too gross and it's not too long, but it just makes fun of, but the truth is, um, to really get to the the foundation of a problem, it usually all comes down to the bowels or the GI tract or the microbiome, which we know is true. And the clue is in the poo. So, and also know that on biomefx.com, there's a great little video there. It's showing them how to collect their poo sample, but it's done kind of in a funny uh, way, so it makes light of it, but it also helps them do a good job on their collection. So you have to, meet people where they are, what's their, um, some people have, poo phobias. They can't even go poo outside of their own home or using their own toilet. So you of course want to respect people's phobias and hangups and conditions where they are. And, this is serious for them, and to respect that. And just by talking about it, I hope if you aren't aware of all the, poop psychology, then, maybe this will help all of us um, have more compassion for those who have poo issues. The end. Sorry, I didn't mean to make that a whole monologue.
Well, it's really important, and most people don't know this information, but everybody has to go, so this is a natural process. When I worked in rehab, we actually had a dedicated nurse. We called her the poop pee queen. And I mean, she was very graphic about things, but she helped a lot of these elderly people. They'd have to vacuum out the colon, because they were so constipated, and it's very, very bad for one's health and well-being. So yeah, it's yeah, but some people get really embarrassed about it.
Exactly. So Dr. Kevin, what's your experience been with this topic? Not personally, just in your professional opinion.
Right. So I don't really have too many cases of constipation. I do have one, and they were normal until they started on the gut restoration. And as soon as they started on the gut restoration, then they became constipated. And then they stop, and then they're not constipated, and then they go, and then they're constipated. And when I talked to you, you had tied it in with candida or some other type of overgrowth. But other than that, I don't really have any other cases.
Yes. So those are the folks, immediately want to say, back off, add water, you add more fiber, and always remind people that they are not to suffer on without letting you know. If anything GI wise changes, to let you know, because there are some recommendations, because some people will go for days, and by the time they get to you, they haven't gone in a week and they are so miserable. So that's a topic to explore, to make sure that they're comfortable enough to let you know that things aren't working right in the BM department.
Now, in terms of the chiropractic side and the brain-based chiropractic, one of the evidences of being in the sympathetic dominance is constipation, because when you're under stress, your digestion turns off, because there's no point in pooping if you're being chased by a bear. So you need to get out of that environment quick, and so you just forget about it. Your bowel shuts down, motility shuts down. So again, it goes back to handling stress. So if you can't handle it very well, then oftentimes that's why you can get constipation, theoretically.
Right. And on that topic, if you're talking to someone and saying, "Oh yeah, and then I'm leaving for my vacation, or I'm gonna have a trip for work," it helps to remind them, if this is one of your prone to constipation folks, that travel for a lot of people is stressful. And it's, I think most of the women that I talk to, they will bring it up that they have to think ahead for every travel trip that they're going to take. What are they going to take so they can poop? Because that's why it's more prone for women. I don't know. It just seems to be.
I think a lot of that goes back to the way we were raised. And for men, I don't think it's so much the case, but for women, we were told not to do our business outside of the house, to do your business at home. At least I was. So I have a friend that travels quite a bit, and she has terrible problems and is always constipated because she can't go when she's traveling.
Now that's helpful feedback for me, because I'm completely not aware of that.
Because you're a guy.
Right.
Your mom probably didn't teach you that, but
Right.
it's like a social thing. It's like, you don't toot in public, you don't, belch, you don't do this, you don't do that. It's all of these rules and etiquette of being, a lady kind of thing. And we've lost a lot of that with our younger generations and such, where everything goes. But I know for older women, I think that, I don't know this for sure, Kevin, but I do believe that may be a component of it.
Yeah. And I know this is hard to believe, but
Several men who are.
Go ahead, Chris.
I know several men, and I'm gonna have to get off anyway, but I know several men who, a lot of my husband's friends, and even a lot of people in the military, because bathroom talk is no, it's not a stranger for any of them, but they won't go in public. Like my husband's best friend, he's overweight, but he will drive like 2 hours all the way home just to go use his own bathroom. I figure he probably has GI issues because he frequents the Whataburger. My husband and him, thank God, are not alike in any of those respects. but we've known him for 20 plus years. So anyway, there's him, and I don't know, several other. I think that it's gotten a lot less a lot more careless because the diet of a lot of these people is so crappy. Like my military Marine nephew will not eat at Wingstop ever again because he had to ride home on a Wingstop box.
Oh, no.
He couldn't make he couldn't make the 2-hour drive because he had gone to Wingstop and had such bad diarrhea that he had to take off his pants and use the box.
Okay, so you're going to have to
sit on.
save that story for next week because we're covering diarrhea next week. And but this, you know, we
Anyway.
laugh, but this is a fact. We see so many people that are obese that are eating from fast food restaurants, and it's developing conditions that they don't want to talk about. They don't want to hear from somebody they have to lose weight, and they will hide the fact that going to the bathroom is a major crisis for them every day. So again, we have to have compassion for where these people are at, and you know, let them know there is hope, there is a solution, but they've got to, you know, be committed and have the discipline to see it through. So I think I'm going to wrap it
in
up.
the respect of the other story, when they can identify the culprit, it's great. But most of the people eat so poorly all the time that it's hard to identify the culprit.
Exactly.
They don't always know it's Wingstop, is my point. Anyway, I got to wrap.
Exactly. Yes. And I'm going to
Thank you,
stop.
Tracy.
You're welcome. Take care. I'm going to stop the video here.
Bye.